Week 2 of the 2024 National Football League season is already here. Our first short week Thursday night football game of the year tonight in Miami. And as they like to do, until we get to like week 8, week 9, week 10, when the games start to lack a little bit of juice, early in the year, some really marquee matchups, including this divisional duel between the Dolphins and the Bills tonight. Right now, both teams listed as a co-favorite to win the AFC East. Of course, they ended 2023 against one another in Western New York. It was Buffalo and Miami in a winner-take-all game for the divisional championship. Buffalo won 5 straight to end the year in its 4th consecutive AFC East crown. They face off tonight in South Florida. We'll get to the weather for the game. We'll get to the line in just a moment. But, Donnie, we start with availability. And for the Dolphins, after coming back last week to hold off the Jacksonville Jaguars in their season opener, winning 20-17, it wasn't the most prolific offensive attack out of Miami, especially on the ground against the Jags. Maybe injury a concern. This from NFL Network's Ian Rappaport yesterday afternoon. Dolphins head coach Mike McDaniel telling reporters that Raheem Mostert is out for Thursday night against the Bills. As for the second-year pro Devon Achane, he is a game-time decision. Quote, "We'll see. What do you make of the Dolphins' backfield entering Thursday night football against Buffalo?"
It's big news. It really is, because you look at that Miami backfield, and they're built like sprinters, that entire offense. Both wide receivers, looking at Waddle and also Tyreek Hill, they can beat you in a foot race. And the same thing with the running backs here. You can hit a home run from any shot on the field with the Dolphins. So now if you're telling me Raheem Mostert is going to miss this game, and that's Mr. Touchdown typically for the Miami Dolphins, he sits this one out. And then you're going to tell me Devon Achane, who is built on speed, right, Ben? He's dealing with an ankle injury, limited in practice yesterday. They're going to expect him to give it a go, but that's not going to be 100%. So now we're looking more on Tua Tagovailoa tonight and the wide receiving core. Mike McDaniel's a great head coach. He is going to be fine at this spot. But having said that, boy, if they were all full blast on this Thursday night, that would be a big advantage for the Miami Dolphins. We'll see how they can overcome that. But I do trust their offensive scheme, and Tua Tagovailoa over 300 yards passing last week. Probably expect more of the same tonight, Ben.
338 and a touchdown last week. That long strike to Tyreek Hill, an 80-yarder in the second half that sparked the comeback over Jacksonville. They were down by 10 at the break. They were down 14-zip early in the opening half against the Jaguars. And the ground game was not great. 25 rushing attempts for Miami in its season opener last week against Jacksonville at home for only 81 yards, just 3.2 yards per pop. Achane did score the touchdown for Miami on the ground and had the most carries. Raheem Mostert, only 6 rush attempts for 9 yards. Jeff Wilson Jr., familiar with McDaniel, dating back to their days in San Francisco, did end the game as Miami's leading rusher. He had 5 carries for 26 yards. Now let's talk about some of the weather. Joe Ranieri here on Tuesday, our native Miamian on the SportsGrid Network. Craig Mish as well. Both did mention, though, DRS, weather this weekend and throughout the week in South Florida, not expected to be great. A ton of storms throughout the afternoon hours today in Miami. By the time we get to kick tonight around 8:15 p.m. local time, supposed to taper off, a chance of showers. The wind cools down a little bit as well. But we saw this total at 50.5 earlier in the week, now down by a full 2 points to 48 and a hook.
But here's what I do like about, Hard Rock Stadium. If anybody's ever been there, it looks beautiful. It's aesthetically pleasing. But for one area of the country, it is kind of interesting that they didn't put a retractable roof on top. Now, I say this by saying I probably would like the retractable roof because then it gives you more clean playing field. You don't have to worry about it as a handicapper. But as playing in the elements means something here. You know as well as I do, Ben, if there was a retractable roof just like down there for the Miami Marlins who play in Lone Depot Park, they never open the thing. So I'm actually glad that there are elements and it can rain through the top of that stadium. But also, there are some detriments to doing that. You tell me right now that I have an over 48.5 or 49.5. The game is 7-7 in the first quarter, and here comes the deluge of rain coming down there. I'm going to be upset about that. It does add some intrigue. And also, all throughout the night, we're looking, Ben, 25 to 30% precipitation. But Miami weather, different than the rest of the country. At any moment, you can get a ton of rain coming in, even if it's in for 3 or 4 minute spurts at that point. Something to keep an eye on. I'm glad we have boots on the ground down there in Miami. Let us know that. It's good stuff. Yeah.
Yes, we certainly do. A 2.5-point spread in favor of the Fins. A full-blown breakdown in hour 2 and throughout the 3 hours on this show. Both teams coming back from down by as many as 2 scores early in the opening half in their opener. Buffalo at home knocking off Arizona 34-28. Welcome to hour number 2, live right here on this Thursday on the early line on SportsGrid. He is Donnie Rightside. I am Ben Stevens. So much football to break down in this second hour as week number 2 of the NFL season kicks off tonight in Miami, our first short week Thursday night football game of this season. And it's a good one, as they often are to kick off TNF. It's week number 2 and a divisional duel between the Miami Dolphins and the Buffalo Bills. We will break down the game. We will look at the individuals that will impact the outcome. And we are expected to get a formal announcement in just a matter of moments about the Pac-12 maybe coming back to life.
Yeah, kill that. Whack 12. We don't want to hear anything out there. By the way, Ben, they should have put that one out, Friday at 5 p.m. in a news dump. So hopefully nobody even questioned what was taking place out there on the West Coast. But we do have an exciting action-packed hour number 2. And you're right. It's a great game on a Thursday night. I was looking so forward to that Monday Night Football game between the 49ers and the Jets, because I just wanted to see that maybe a battle that maybe 5 to 6 minutes left to go in the game would still be in the balance. That wasn't the case. Hopefully we get those minds changed tonight and have a great performance, because we brought it up yesterday, Ben. Plus 180 price on both of these teams to win that division. The winner of this game is going to get a big leg up in the AFC East. So it'll be fun to watch it play out.
Very big leg up, because the Jets were the only team out of the 4, and that includes the Patriots, to lose their season opening game. New York entered the year as a slight favorite in the competitive division that is, at least among the top 3 teams, the AFC East, a division that Buffalo has won for 4 consecutive seasons. So not just a good week 2 short week Thursday night football game, but a very significant one that will have ramifications for the entirety of these 18 weeks around the NFL. Let's get into the numbers for this game to kick off week number 2 tonight. Miami at home in South Florida, 2.5-point favorite against Buffalo. The total has worked its way down from where the number opened up earlier this week at 50 and a hook. 48.5. DRS, we mentioned the weather, storms throughout the afternoon. Some pretty nasty weather for a good majority of this weekend in South Florida, but expected to taper off a little bit by the time we get to kick tonight. A couple of showers, maybe not that strong of winds. What do you make of the matchup tonight between the Fins and the Bills?
And isn't that usually the key, Ben, right? We always talk about, there is rain that you worry about, but it's more likely if it's the rain and wind that really puts a damper on the situation. Now, granted, South Florida rain, a lot different than rain around the country, because it can come look like you're actually stepping out of a shower and can get soaked in a matter of moments, which could do a lot of damage to that football field. But let's play it out as if we don't get those crazy rainstorms tonight. It's a warm night, but again, you're not playing on a Sunday afternoon where the opposing team's sideline is 30 degrees higher than the home team because they sit them in the sun. Smart move for home field advantage. You won't have that in the night game. And also, the reason why you like sometimes Thursday night football games, Ben, earlier in the season, because you don't have the attrition. Let me tell you something right now. A first, second, or third week Thursday night game hits a lot differently than a week 8, 9, or 10 when you're already into the season. Bumps and bruises. You can't heal up quickly. But even though we saw game number 1, that backfield for the Miami Dolphins is banged up here. But here's the interesting part. If you looked at the final score, like let's just say the Arizona-Buffalo Bills game, you would have thought that Kyler Murray moved that football up and down the field through the air. That wasn't the case. I believe only 162 yards passing. And then you flip it over to the Miami Dolphins defense, which you say, okay, they're probably going to get into a lot of high-scoring tilts. Technically, last week it wasn't, but Trevor Lawrence, I think, also 162 yards passing as well. So the defenses last week that could be a little bit maligned, weren't really through the air. But this week, you're going to have to be ready for that, because I don't care what sort of pass defense you have getting ready for Tua Tagovailoa and those wide receivers, you're going to get beat up, because I thought the Jacksonville Jaguars defense was pretty good last week, only to find out Tua Tagovailoa throws for well over 300 yards, and Tyreek Hill at any time can hit those 80-yard touchdowns. So that's something to keep in mind. I still do think, though, Ben, that 48.5 is going to be susceptible to an over, because both of those quarterbacks, both of those offenses can be electric at times, but it's just interesting to see that they both held last week's quarterbacks at 162 yards, and they're both pretty good quarterbacks that they held that to.
The Bills game against Arizona at home did have a total in the mid-40s, 46 and a hook. It went well over. Part of that was game script dependent, right? Buffalo down 14-zip or 17-3 very early on. It got closer by the break, but it was a high-scoring affair, and the Bills needed to come back. Josh Allen doing a good majority of that. Allen, 4 total touchdowns on Sunday for Buffalo, 232 yards, 2 touchdowns through the air, 39 yards on the ground, 2 rushing scores as well. Miami also down 14-zip in the second quarter to Jacksonville, down by double digits at the half. They stormed all the way back, 338 yards for Tua Tagovailoa, and 80 of them coming on one play, touchdown strike to Tyreek Hill. What's so interesting to me, Donnie, is when you look at the numbers for this game, we'll get to the totals in just a moment that DRS was discussing, but Miami's nearly a full field goal favorite at home, 2.5-point spread. We know how good the Dolphins have been when booked as the favored side, expected to win a matchup under Mike McDaniel since he became the head coach in Miami since 2022. The Dolphins 18-4 straight up since the start of 2022 as the favorite. They are 9-3 against the spread since the start of last year. 9-2 ATS in 2023 did not cover as a 3.5-point favorite against Jacksonville. Miami, from the odds makers' perspective, I should say, is expected to win this game. But we know about Tua Tagovailoa's record against teams that are factoring into the playoff race. It's not great. Do you think Miami deserves to be the short favorite on this short week?
I do, because it's still one of the bigger advantages in professional sports to have that Thursday night football game at home, because, again, the away team is playing a game on Sunday. They're basically a day off Monday, walk through Tuesday, which is typically their day off, on a plane on Wednesday after another walkthrough, and playing on Thursday. So at least if you're the home team, you have more of that acclimation process because you don't have to have a built-in travel day at that point. And also, you're the home team. You have the home crowd. It should be to your advantage. And we're not looking for upsets. Like, nobody's going to say, wow, I'm shocked that the Miami Dolphins are a favorite here. If you're giving 3 points away for home field advantage, these two teams are equal, and that's why we're expecting a great outcome. But I'm not shocked that the Miami Dolphins are the favorites here, somewhat healthy at the key positions, because running backs don't matter. We'll see. If you can get Devon Achane to be 80% of what he is, that'll be just fine for a running back tonight.
Yep. The Buffalo Bills have won 4 consecutive AFC East crowns, starting in the 2020 NFL season, storming back last year to win their final 5 games, including the Week 18 regular season finale against Miami to claim that 4th straight divisional title. In that span, since the start of 2020, Buffalo's only been booked as a dog 13 total times, 3 of them coming last year, even with Buffalo starting off just 6-6. They are 6-7 straight up, 7-6 against the spread as in underdog. That's where things are as of this moment. And again, Donnie, overall outlook for these two teams, both having to come back in their season openers to start this season 1-0. Miami over Jacksonville, Buffalo over Arizona. By the hook, neither of these two clubs covered in the season opener. But when you take the season-long perspective, on Miami, on Buffalo, two teams we expect to factor into the playoff race, into the race for an AFC East crown. What is your early thought about both the Fins and the Bills?
It's interesting because as the way we look at the game tonight, it's basically a pick 'em right outside of home field advantage. You see that graphic up there, the Bills at 10.5 and the Dolphins at 9.5. I think they're on a similar trajectory here. So if I'm looking to bet on either one of these teams, I probably would take the Dolphins because the pricing is better. 9.5 team wins here. Better to pricing here to win the AFC Championship. Better pricing to win a Super Bowl than the Buffalo Bills. That's the only way I would lean. Now, again, this game, as we talk about, both of these teams plus 180 to win that division. This is a massive game. You get the leg up in the division and the tiebreaker starting on your end. Now, if you're the Buffalo Bills and you go to Miami and steal a game early, you know Miami has to go up to Buffalo in colder temperatures, and you can get that 2-0 sprint here, which would probably give you the division at that point. So it's a much bigger game for me, for the Buffalo Bills than it is, for the Miami Dolphins than it is the Buffalo Bills, just because you're home. You want to take care of business on your own field, and we'll see how it plays out tonight. But a good game nonetheless. We're expecting some fireworks. It should be a good one.
Next game between these two, week number 9 to start off November in Western New York. Plenty more coming your way next. We continue our deep dive into the start of week number 2. It is Thursday night football in this evening in Miami between the Dolphins and the Bills. DRS and the crew on Pro Football Today, or at least the Pro Football Today crew, will be live tonight on this Thursday for all of your in-game live betting needs for TNF. DRS, how excited are you to be back with the guys in studio just like you were on Monday?
Oh, it's going to be a good time tonight nonetheless, and sometimes you just dictate it on basically how good we expect that football game to be. So the expectations are high. I mean, there's times where you sit there on a Thursday night football game, week 11, week 12, be like, what are we actually doing here tonight? We getting in? Who's the quarterback going to play? You got superstars all over the board in a meaningful game early in the season. The vibes will be extremely high. Same game parlays, in-game live betting. We'll have everything coverage for you there starting at 8:15 with the boys in studio. So yes, vibes are high. We're going to do very well tonight. I can feel it, and we'll watch it play out.
I can't wait to see what your in-game bets are for this one based on the pregame numbers and how it's expected to go. A quarterback battle between Josh Allen and Tua Tagovailoa tonight on this Thursday in South Beach. We start with Allen, who had 4 total touchdowns on Sunday in Western New York to spark that offense for Buffalo and lead the comeback. 244.5 his passing yards prop tonight, 37 in a hook on the ground. He was under through the air on Sunday, but over on the ground, and that anytime touchdown prop would have cashed twice technically, as he had 2 rushing scores. Miami's defense against Josh Allen and Buffalo's offense. What do you expect?
It's going to be good here because, and the reason I want to bring up game number 1, he was everything to that offense. Everything. We know how the NFL works. If you are going to be everything as a quarterback, you might be nothing by week 12 because you're going to be banged up and on the injured reserve list. I don't know how you can run your offense just through your quarterback, but it felt like that was taking place. Now, we're going to talk a little bit later about some running back props that I think make some sense for the Buffalo Bills, but the ultimate running back prop seems like it's with Josh Allen. Did you watch that game? Like, they get inside the 5-yard line, and maybe the most unstoppable play in football, which used to be the tush push. It's like, okay, first down, we run Josh Allen on a quarterback keeper or a naked boot keeper, not even a naked boot keeper, just run him on his own sweep. And it seems like he finds the end zone time and time again. And he's not one of those quarterbacks that shies away from contact. You saw him get beat up just a bit, which injured his non-throwing left hand. So I say to myself, if you're looking for a rushing touchdown, yes, I don't think Josh Allen in the middle of a play is going, I can run this in from 5 yards, but I don't know if I want to take a shot to my hand. Let me flip the ball out of bounds or try to throw it into the back of the end zone. Right. But I am a little bit more cautionary this week at handling that on a Thursday night where maybe the Buffalo Bills coaching staff is like, hey, Josh, love you. You're an MVP. You carried us back. You did what you had to do in a football game that we were behind 2 touchdowns. I get it. But live the fight another day. Maybe we call a little bit more handoffs in the red zone. But I got to tell you this. Over 1.5 touchdown passes tonight on both of these quarterbacks. We'll get to Tua Tagovailoa as well. I really like that. But it is interesting to see the statistics from last week. Both of these teams, much maligned, I guess, coming into the season, whether it's injuries or question marks on the defense, they were very good pass defenses last week here. So something to look forward to tonight. Maybe these quarterbacks can't get off the way we think they will because those defenses played quite well last week.
Yep, we'll talk about Tua Tagovailoa right here, right now. Somehow, some way, Donnie, despite Miami only scoring 20 points, and it seemed like a very slow start in South Beach last Sunday against Jacksonville. You look at the numbers, Tua Tagovailoa ends up with more than 330 passing yards, 338 to be exact, and a touchdown, 80 coming on one play. It was the touchdown toss to Tyreek Hill, who broke away from the Jacksonville secondary. 268.5 is the number, more than 24 yards in front of Josh Allen tonight, or exactly 24 yards in front of Allen tonight. What do you expect out of Tua Tagovailoa to start off week number 2?
I expect good things as well. And also, you're looking at some of those pass completion numbers and pass attempt numbers that might be going a little bit higher. Not because the expectations of a shootout and a total around 48.5, Ben. It's just a simple thought process that you say, let's just keep this simple. If Raheem Mostert is not there and Devon Achane is banged up a little bit, yes, Jeff Wilson is a capable back, but are we really handing it off as much as we maybe thought? And all you need to know is those lines are pretty sharp. It could be the difference, Ben, between 1 and 2 passes, which means cashing a bet or losing a bet. I'm expecting much more in the arm of Tua Tagovailoa, which is kind of funny. In week number 1, it wasn't a high-scoring game against Jacksonville, but he easily went over the 300-yard marker, because the one thing you do know, at any given time, an 75-yard, 80-yard touchdown pass is in that repertoire for the Miami offense. You saw it last week, down in the doldrums, down 17-7. Whoop, one play, 17, 14, 80 yards, momentum completely flips here. That's the fun part about it. I do think that Buffalo Bills defense is not as good nearly as it was the past 2 to 3 years. years, and you should be able to take advantage of that, which tonight, again, banged up running backs. I think they lean a little bit more on Tua Tagovailoa dropping back-wise. We still expect him to be, Ben, what? High 280s, 290s, approaching 300 yards. So I would lean towards the over, but I think there might be a little bit more dropbacks than anticipated just due to the running back room availability tonight for the Dolphins.
Yeah, the pass completions prop 22.5, the attempts at 33 and a hook. In terms of the number, Tua Tagovailoa over this number in 4 of the first 5 games from last year. Good weather to start. Things are hot when September rolls around in the first few weeks of the NFL season. Again, the weather could dictate some things tonight in terms of game flow, especially some rain and wind, if that's what we see in some stormy South Florida weather on this Thursday night. Threw for 338 last week against the Jacksonville Jaguars, who did not have a great passing defense by any means a season ago and ended up in the second half getting exposed in the secondary once again. DRS, when you look at the number again of 268.5 for Tua Tagovailoa, it's a number he went over in his first 2 home games of the year last year. 3 of the first 5 for Miami a season ago were on the road. Their first 2 home games right from the jump to start 2024. Both teams only allowing 162 yards to each quarterback last week. Kyler Murray, $162 against Buffalo. Trevor Lawrence, after a great opening half, stalled out in the second as the Jaguars were shut out. Only $162 against Miami.
Yeah, both of these defenses actually played much, much better in the second half than the first half, so that's also something to keep an eye on tonight. But it is a shorter preparation process, but the one thing you do like, if you're both coaches, you know the game plans, you know the styles of both of these teams. I'm interested to see what Joe Brady does on offense tonight. Again, a little bit banged up quarterback. Sure. Nobody's expecting anything different because maybe you'd say if it was a broken finger or a broken or banged up hand on the throwing hand, maybe that's the problem for Josh Allen. Clean game tonight. Let's have some fun.
We'll talk about the playmakers up next on the early line. Let's look at the playmakers tonight and their props associated for Thursday night football in Miami to start week number 2 between the Dolphins and the Bills. There was a lot of optimism, DRS, this year in Buffalo out of second-year tight end from Utah, Dalton Kincaid. He is still the highest receiving yards prop player for Buffalo tonight. 42.5. But in the season opener for the Bills against the Cardinals, he had 1 catch on 2 targets for only 11 yards. It was the rookie wideout out of Florida State via Michigan State, Keon Coleman, the leading receiver for Buffalo on Sunday. 4 grabs, 5 targets, 51 yards. We'll get to the explosive playmakers for Miami in just a moment. What do you make of Buffalo tonight, assuming the health of the Bills is in a better spot than Miami, at least the non-left throwing hand of Josh Allen not expected to factor in this evening?
I do like over 2 touchdown passes here for Josh Allen. I think it makes a lot of sense. And again, we're looking at a total around 50. We're expecting points. Both teams probably to score at least 3 touchdowns. So that is a good look here. But also last week, Ben, my best bet on the Pro Football Today show on Sunday was Josh Allen to throw more than 1.5 touchdown passes, which again is 2, and he got that. But you know the basis for that for me, Ben? It wasn't at the wide receiving core. Like Shakir is okay, I get it. Coleman was a rookie coming in. Mac Hollins is the 3rd wide receiver. Yeah. Now Shakir and Hollins caught both of those touchdowns. But if you ask me for my breakdown, I actually thought the red zone targets would be really high for the tight ends, and at least 1, if not 2 touchdown passes could have been to the tight end. So if I still keep that same energy this week and say it's a wide receiving core that I'm not all in love with just yet, I always like the 2 options at tight end. So if you're looking at Kincaid, that number should increase tonight. Those red zone targets should be there. He should be more active in the game plan. So I do agree with you. Keon Coleman, a couple catches last week, but it's still hard, Ben, to trust a rookie this early in his career. Yeah. Khalil Shakir, down the stretch last year, one of my favorite wideouts for the Buffalo Bills. But I do agree. Dalton Kincaid should be the lead dog here, and I'm looking for red zone targets with a legitimate chance to catch a touchdown.
Khalil Shakir right at this number last week, 42 yards on 3 grabs, only 3 targets. I will say, though, DRS, over this number of 40.5 in 9 of the final 14 for Buffalo a season ago, including the 2 playoff games, having 44 in the divisional round against Kansas City. The reason you bring that up is because it's a new-look roster for Buffalo on both sides of the football. But for Josh Allen, it might take a little bit of time, at least for Keon Coleman, despite being the leading receiver, or Mac Hollins, despite catching a touchdown last week. Khalil Shakir is really the guy that remains from the Bills wide receiver core of a season ago. of course, now we go to Miami. Tyreek Hill, 7 grabs, 130 yards, and a touchdown in week number 1, despite being detained outside of the stadium in a scary situation prior to kick of the season opener. Jalen Waddle, also a big game, as the Dolphins were moving it through the air in that second half. When you look at Miami, knowing that more than likely we're not going to see Raheem Mostert tonight, and we're not exactly sure of the availability or if he will be even near 95 to 100% of Devon Achane, what do you make of Miami's skilled players on the outside?
It's kind of hard to gauge because the one thing that you do like is, yes, everybody wants to take Tyreek Hill every single week. Touchdown prop each week. Yeah. It probably makes a lot of sense to do that. But sometimes those numbers betting-wise, right, 93.5. So if you just slightly round that up, it's basically 100 yards, the anticipation. Do you think he can get there? Yes. But if you equate it to baseball, it's like, hey, I got a great pitcher on the mound. Strikeout prop, 9.5. Well, he's actually got to get to 10 here. There could be a lot of factors to keep him under that. Yeah. I do usually love secondary options, and maybe one of the best secondary options in the NFL is Jalen Waddle, 65.5, much more palatable, right? Hey, 25 yards receiving at the half. He can easily get that in the second half with one catch. And last week, he did have one of those big catches. The same thing with Tyreek Hill. So tight ends for me completely out in Miami. Running backs too much up in the air tonight to take a guess and say, hey, Jeff Wilson season, only see he gets 3 carries and maybe 2 catches out of the backfield. Not good enough. You are going to zero in on Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. Already love Tua Tagovailoa over 1.5 touchdown passes. So there, Ben. Somebody has to catch at least 2 touchdown passes. It's probably coming from the wide receivers. So instead of the yards for Tyreek Hill, which he can get at 93.5, I'd much more likely go with a touchdown catch for Tyreek Hill in that situation.
I would agree. Minus 130, not all that steep of a price for Hill to find the end zone. I loved Jalen Waddle early last year before he was banged up week number 3. First 2 games of the season, that secondary option well over this number of 65.5. Broke through the century mark, 109 yards on 5 grabs a week ago against Jacksonville. James Cook, 71 yards on the ground, but hard-earned. He had 18 carries, 1 that went for 15 yards, so that meant 17 carries for 56 yards outside of the big bop, but 3 catches for 32 yards. I would look for Cook out of the backfield tonight in the passing game for Buffalo. You thought futures fusion, now that the regular season has been started in the National Football League, was done? No. It continues after week 1, setting the stage for week number 2 on this Thursday night that starts this second week of the season. So, Donnie, Futures Fusion, a reminder for everybody out there, a category on the FanDuel Sportsbook to combine a couple of things in what would be a season-long parlay, and we like to do them comparing a couple of the bets against each other. Let's start with 2 teams expected to contend for conference crowns and maybe a Super Bowl championship this season. The Eagles to be the NFC number 1 seed and win the NFC, it's a 9-1 price, or the Chiefs to be the AFC number 1 seed and win the Super Bowl, take it a step further, also at 9-1. If you had to wager on one of these 2 bets, what would your Futures Fusion selection be?
Let's take a look at both of them, right? Because if you're lining these up, you first look at price point. They're both the same. 9-1 price, 9-1 price. So there's no just, I'll just take the higher one and we'll flip a coin and go that direction. Now, also, let's take a look at what changes here. Each team supposed to be the number 1 seed, the Chiefs and the Eagles. But the changes on these bets, which differentiated, one team just has to win the NFC, which means they show up in the Super Bowl and don't have to win it. The Kansas City Chiefs were asking them to show up in the Super Bowl and win the Super Bowl. So, again, as an Eagles fan, would love to make that bet at a 9-1 price. Do I think they're the best team in the NFC? No, I don't right now. So that would mean that they would get the number 1 seed by being the best regular season team and also throughout the playoffs being the best NFC team. I don't know if they're capable of that. Yes. I don't know if that's going to be the ending solution. But you've heard me, Ben, talk so much in the offseason about how good I think the Kansas City Chiefs are. If I didn't think they were a great team last year and won the Super Bowl, they improved their team this year. Why would I not think that they cannot be the number 1 overall seed in the AFC and win the Super Bowl once again, which would make it 3 straight times? So it's simple to me. I'm just going to stick to what I know when I was talking about in the offseason. Rooting for the Eagles, think they could be a quality team, but betting on the Chiefs and betting them to be the best team, that seems like a better feasible option to me. The 9-1 price I'm going with, the Chiefs to be the number 1 seed and win the Super Bowl. That's the fusion bet I'd make.
Yeah, DRS, it's hard to argue from the odds perspective as the Chiefs are favored in both of those categories to be the number one seed in the AFC at plus 170 in front of the Texans. And KC has the highest win total in that conference, 11.5 at a overjuiced of minus 144. They are also the favorite to win Super Bowl 59, half a dollar in front of San Francisco. The Eagles are not the favorite in either of the two categories in their futures fusion. San Francisco is the favorite to win the NFC as of this moment, and San Francisco is the favorite to be the number one overall seed in the NFC, plus 230 for the Niners, more than half in front, plus 230, the Eagles at plus 470. So you slash that price in half and then take off 10 more cents. You get San Francisco with a pretty large gap in front of Philadelphia, and the Niners more than $1 favorite in front of the Eagles to be that number one overall seed in the NFC. The Niners at this moment actually have the highest win total technically in the National Football League. 12.5 is the number. The under has a slight bit of juice. Again, KC 11.5. The over has more juice there at minus 144. So again, I do agree with the Chiefs, but I actually feel, just based on my own pedigree, that Philadelphia is my pick to win the NFC. So I like that component of it. Don't necessarily need the Eagles to be the top overall seed in the conference at the end of the regular season to make good on the second part of that equation. Next, Futures Fusion, and a fun one. NFC West teams to win 35 or more combined games, it's even money, plus 100, or the NFC South teams to win 30 or less combined games at plus 110. Which side you choosing?
Yeah, we don't like math out here, Ben. The reason I bring this up is I don't know how many people are actually going to the FanDuel Sportsbook and betting either one of these, because when you look at it, like, okay, let's start with the first one. NFC West teams to win 35-plus combined games. So you're telling me I got to go through 4 different schedules and 4 different outcomes here and then grab a computer, decide to see which way I'm going to go. And then on the opposite side, the same thing. NFC South teams to win 30 or less games at a plus 110 price. Now, if we look at it optimistically, right, we do understand the teams with chances to win a championship, one of those at least resides in the NFC West. It's the San Francisco 49ers. They were tremendous on opening night. You say, you know what? That's probably a double-digit win team, 12, maybe 13 wins if they can stay healthy and Christian McCaffrey comes back sooner than later, right? Then you take a look at the NFC South and say, well, we know they might have the single worst team in the NFL in the Carolina Panthers. But sometimes you have to do some, little bit of math skills in this one. If we look at the NFC South teams to win 30 or less, that's really hard to do. Let's just take a look at the upper echelon of that division, which we just removed Carolina out, right? The Atlanta Falcons, I did have some decent aspirations for them this year, and I think they can win that division, and I still do. Tampa Bay looked good on opening day. Baker Mayfield, that offense looked solid here. And then you take a look at the New Orleans Saints, who maybe were the most surprising team of week number 1, crushing the Carolina Panthers. So if you use those 3 teams, Ben, and say, okay, what's the average for them? 9 wins, 9 wins, 9 wins, right? Just the average I'm talking about between those 3.
Yeah.
That gets you to 27 wins, which means I understand Carolina is supposed to stink. But 3-14 is so epically bad, but would still be able to cash that ticket technically towards the over. So for me, NFC South teams to win 30 or less games plus 110, I'm not betting that because I do think those 3 teams can account for 27. I just need 3 wins out of the Panthers, which I should get just by, blindly walking or betting with them. So that NFC West team's 35-plus combined games at plus 100, I'm probably more likely to take that one than the NFC South teams to win less than 30 games. That's a crazy number.
Yeah, so I would agree with you, DRS. I actually think we will see at least 31 combined wins out of the NFC South. The good thing is they all have to play each other. And again, the Falcons' win total prior to the year was 9.5. The over had the juice. Now the under has the juice. But let's just say it's 9 wins for Atlanta. Tampa's win total 8.5. The under has the juice. 8 wins, fine. New Orleans, 7.5. Over has the juice. 8 wins. We're talking 25. 25. Carolina gives you 5. There you go. And I actually think, kind of like what we saw, DRS, back in 2022, it's not going to be the Panthers bringing up the rear with only 2 wins, where you had a division where the Bucs won the title with a losing record, but the 3 teams that finished either tied for last or in second, depending on how you categorize it, were all 7-10, where the basement is not as deep this year, although Carolina, I don't expect to win 7 games necessarily. We have a little bit more futures fusion on the other side. A Thursday night football inspired Futures Fusion live right here on this Thursday on the early line. Again, we love the Futures Fusion on the FanDuel Sportsbook season-long bets combined together to form your kind of futures parlay, but we use two of them and compare them against each other. Now, the odds for the first two that we did, very similar. For the Eagles and Chiefs, it was both 9-1. For the NFC West teams having 35-plus wins, or the NFC South teams having 30 or less wins, it was plus 100 for the West, plus 110 for the South. These odds are very, very different. For the Dolphins to win the AFC East or the AFC Championship, plus 145. The Bills are the number one seed in the AFC or win the AFC crown is plus 470. So which way are you going?
Oh, it's a no-brainer. Even though, look, everybody wants the higher price point at plus 470, pays out better, right? But the Bills are the AFC number one seed or win the AFC title. You get two shots at that, right? So you say, okay, if I finish as the third seed, if I go in and win the AFC title, I can still cash that ticket. But I don't think the Buffalo Bills are going to be the number one seed because I already told you it's going to be the Kansas City Chiefs. And even if the Buffalo Bills can finish like high up and get home field advantage, we saw that last year where the Kansas City Chiefs came into town and still beat them anyway. So it is a nice price at plus 470, but I'm not as high on the Buffalo Bills as I was in the off season. And granted, this would have been a crazy one to ask if they had lost to the Arizona Cardinals on opening day, which they were down 2 touchdowns. I do give them credit for coming back, but it's not as if you came back against a football team expected to do a lot of things. Now you flip over to the Miami Dolphins. They are extremely talented. They're one of those top 3 teams in the AFC East with a legitimate chance to win that division. So if we're saying to win the AFC East and or the AFC title, you still do get 2 looks at that, because if you don't win the division, you can still make the playoffs and still make a run in the playoffs. But I do think the Miami Dolphins have a legitimate chance to win the AFC East, even though it's a lower price point, Ben. I'll go plus 145 and say, give me the 2 shots here at a much easier number.
It makes a lot of sense, right? You're specifically looking at one outcome for Miami. That's be good in the regular season, as you have been for the 2 years under Mike McDaniel, and win a division. That's it. That's done. You take care of that. It's not Buffalo trying to win its division and have a better record than the Ravens, the Bengals, the Steelers, the Chiefs, whoever it might be, the Texans elsewhere in the conference, or when you get to the postseason and you compare those two prices. Now, what is interesting, Donnie, just looking at the numbers here in this moment, to win the division, the 2 teams are co-favorites, that the Bills and the Dolphins both at a plus 180 number. Buffalo has a much shorter price than Miami to win the AFC title, 7-1. Miami at 10-1. The Jets, another AFC East team, sandwiched in between, 50 cents behind the Bills at plus 750. Now, here's the reason why I kind of like Buffalo's Futures Fusion more, but I would not bet it, because I'd rather just bet Buffalo to win the AFC at plus 700, because I actually think that is the most likely outcome of all 4. Buffalo number 1 seed, Buffalo AFC Championship, Miami AFC East, Miami AFC Championship. If I had to tell you which one I like the most, it would be the Bills winning the AFC title when all is said and done. The Dolphins haven't won a playoff game since the year 2000. And Miami had pole position last year to win the AFC East, had a very difficult schedule down the stretch against teams that would be in the playoffs, lost a ton of them, booked as an underdog in a ton of them, and Buffalo won 5 straight, including the regular season finale in Week 18, to take the AFC East for a 4th consecutive year. And if it's not just Buffalo, I still think the New York Jets are going to be fine in contending for the divisional crown as well.
Yeah, the Jets probably should pick it up this weekend and be at least 1-1. Then you're also going to see a team in the AFC East also be 1-1, because why? 2 teams are playing tonight at 1-0. Somebody has to lose that game. And also, you might have a good argument here, too, at the back end of it. I don't like to take a look at other seasons, per se, Ben, like how long it's been since the Miami Dolphins have won a playoff game. The same way I look at the New York Jets, like, oh, they don't even make the playoffs, so how could they actually win the division? You want to take a look at this season in its totality. But it does feel like the Buffalo Bills technically would be better off in the playoffs than the Miami Dolphins. Now, granted, last year they were so injured and went on the road. But then anybody look at that game, the Kansas City in the freezing cold, like this is like the worst case scenario for the Dolphins. So when the Dolphins go on the road in the playoffs to colder conditions, or if the Buffalo Bills go on the road to colder conditions, who's more adept to probably handle that atmosphere? Josh Allen and the Buffalo Bills. And having said that, if Josh Allen and the Buffalo Bills make the playoffs, that means that young wide receiving core really stepped up throughout the season. So they might be a better version of themselves by week 15, 16, and 17. So I can see it.
Miami's win total 9.5 over juiced. Buffalo's win total 10.5. The under has substantial juice, but Buffalo still a peg in front of Miami from where the odds makers see it. Hour 3 up next here on the early line. Welcome to hour number 3, our third and final, live right here on the early line on SportsGrid. It is a Thursday, and a Thursday in football season means the start of a new NFL week. Week number 2 underway tonight in Miami with a divisional duel in a good one to start the first short week Thursday night football game of the year. It's the Dolphins playing host to the Buffalo Bills. He is Donnie Rightside. I am Ben Stevens. Plenty of breakdowns come your way for Thursday night football in this third and final hour. A few Major League Baseball thoughts on this Thursday as well. One more hour to go up until 11 a.m. Eastern.
Yeah, I love the way the NFL, by the way, Ben, started off the season, right? You had 2 playoff caliber teams, obviously opening night on Thursday last weekend with the Kansas City Chiefs and the Baltimore Ravens. You had 2 playoff teams for what we thought the Philadelphia Eagles and the Green Bay Packers. Roll that into Sunday night football, the Rams and Detroit, 2 playoff teams there. Monday night football, we expect the Jets and the Niners to get there. And then right back on Thursday night football, you have the Miami Dolphins and the Buffalo Bills, 2 teams we expect to get to the playoffs. So fantastic stuff to talk about and a lot of fun tonight because I think those quarterbacks going to throw some touchdown passes tonight.
48.5 is the total we expect if the weather does cooperate. A lot of offense tonight in South Florida. And DRS, that was part of what we had to ask the people out there as they get ready for week number 2 in Miami playing host to Buffalo. What is the best bet for Thursday night football? That was the question to all of you in Fade the Public. At SportsGrid on Twitter, the Fins a home favorite, but less than a field goal, laying 2.5. Buffalo the underdog for what is going to be just the 14th time in the last 4+ seasons, now into week number 2. Total at 48 and a hook, and we like the over or the under. So when it came to the public DRS, people going with the Bills, Dolphins, second amount of the vote, and then 23% on the over of 48 and a hook. 300 votes in the FTP poll to start this Thursday.
Yeah, pretty good. That shows the excitement out there where people are ready for this football game to see how it plays out, and we expect a close game, which is why it's a -2.5 point spread. You take a look at the Buffalo Bills. It's interesting this, too, because for me, it's always been this way. If you are looking to take a game on Thursday night, you start with the home team and you end with the home team. If you don't like the home team, you just move on and try to find some other angles to bet here. So it is interesting to see if the public goes, I don't give a damn about that, Donnie. It's a road team, Buffalo Bills. They're getting points. I think they're the better team, and that's the way they're voting. Now take a look at the over-under. Typically on Thursday night primetime games, it hasn't been a great run of a lot of overs here. Quite frankly, most of these games have been going under, but I also buck that trend a little bit by saying it's early in the season. Depending on the weather tonight, let's just say it doesn't get crazy. Light winds, warm temperatures, and maybe a little rain here or there. That shouldn't affect anything that happens on the field. And again, if this game was week 13 or 14 as opposed to week number 2, that's a completely different story. I believe they can get over the total tonight, so I voted not with the side, but with the total, and I went with the over, which 23% of these votes did as well.
So for the second consecutive week, when we look at the Fade the Public poll, or maybe it was Monday Night Football, I vote with where the public feels at this moment. The Bills +2.5. On Monday Night DRS, when we did this with the 49ers and the Jets, I wanted to lay 4.5 with the Niners, dropped to 3.5 by game time with the absence of Christian McCaffrey, and I was like, man, here I am eating the public chalk once again with San Francisco. Did not like the public being on my side. I just think Buffalo is the better team. Frankly, I'm going to bet Buffalo money line tonight over the Dolphins, just how I feel with some injuries to the backfield for Miami. I don't know if the public is necessarily going to sway me at this moment. When the line opened up at 50.5, I really thought to myself, we're going to see some points tonight. early in the year, short week. Sure, the offenses might be a little bit slow, but maybe the defense is not ready to keep pace. Then the weather reports drop this total by 2, maybe short week Thursday night football, dropping this total and influencing that number as well. But like you, DRS, I do think we see some offense tonight. Again, the Dolphins in week number 1 against Jacksonville tied for the second highest total of the entire week 1 slate at 49.5. Stayed well under 20-17. Jacksonville led 17-7 at the break. Did not score again in the final 2 quarters. Miami did rally, but a bunch of field goals in that football game. I do think the Dolphins offense is a little bit better tonight, even with the injuries to the backfield. And I think Buffalo does enough to push us to an over of 48.5.
Yeah, keep in mind, Jalen Ramsey limited in practice this week as well, the all-pro cornerback here for the Miami Dolphins. And again, you are going to have those bumps and bruises, just not as amplified as what they would be late in the season. And also a key ingredient, too, from those prop betting perspectives. You have to understand this. Raheem Mostert is not going to play tonight. It said they're not going to put him on IR. He'll be back sooner than later. So this might be maybe a multiple-week injury. So now you have to take a look and say, all right, Devon Achane now is going to be a game-time decision. And if anybody doesn't understand what that means an hour and a half to 2 hours before the game, he's going to go on the field and try to run around to see if he can play. Does that tell you right off the bat he's probably not healthy enough to play in this game? And also, if this was a Thursday night football game, which it is, and not a Sunday game, maybe he could play on Sunday. But also, do you want to risk further injuring that ankle to Devon Achane and be down 2 starting running backs for multiple weeks as opposed to 1 week? So something to play into that also, which means much more on the arm of Tua Tagovailoa that we turned off, starting the show, we started to say, or at least myself, I think there's going to be more chances of dropbacks and completions for Tua Tagovailoa than usual. And also, that helps with the touchdown market. These guys are 2 unbelievable running backs in the red zone, too, scoring touchdowns, which now won't be there. Is that an Alex Ingold touchdown here that you sneak in from the fullback position? Do you trust Jeff Wilson? Or do you say, you know what? We're not risking this. We're going to throw the football into the end zone, which means more touchdown passes for Tua.
Last week, Jeff Wilson ended up being the Dolphins' leading rusher, 5 carries for 26 yards. Devon Achane had the most rush attempts, 10 of them, the only one in double digits, 24 yards, and did score a touchdown. When I look at this game, though, from a prop perspective, I'm going to look at the second option for the wide receiver in Miami, just because Tyreek Hill's number is already 93.5, which is a little bit ludicrous. I wouldn't recommend betting the under. I just don't really want to bet the top of the market. Jalen Waddle, 65 and a hook, makes a lot of sense to me. I also look at the other running back, DRS, in James Cook. Not necessarily on the ground, but in terms of his receiving yards prop tonight at 18 and a half. 3 grabs, 32 yards. We discussed this in terms of the talent offensively that Josh Allen has at his disposal. We thought it would be Dalton Kincaid week 1 grab, 11 yards, 2 targets. It was the rookie Keon Coleman, the leading receiver with 51 yards. We talked about the familiarity still with Khalil Shakur, who had 42 yards, 3 grabs, 442 yards, and a touchdown. That connection still is there with James Cook as well. I think those are my 2 favorite props for tonight. Waddle, receiving yards, James Cook, receiving yards as well.
I like James Cook. And also, sometimes it's not so much just about the X's and O's, but what you try to think of how that game plan is going to play out. And it's simple for me sometimes. You saw it last week once again. Josh Allen in a game they absolutely had to win, couldn't go 0-1 against one of the worst teams in football. He had to do everything in his power to win that game, which included 2 touchdown passes, but also 2 athletic running plays to get into the end zone. He actually scored a 3rd touchdown, but got called back, which is insane. You can't have your quarterback doing that. It's one thing, Ben, to do a quarterback sneak from the 1-yard line. It's another to have your guy jumping from the 5-yard line and landing on his head in the end zone repeatedly. Eventually, that's going to take a toll. The reason I bring that up is James Cook, a capable running back, looked great last week. Speed, shifty. Hand him the football in the red zone. It'll work out just fine with touchdowns. So I actually like James Cook tonight on the ground for yardage. And also, more importantly, I think he finds pay dirt because I don't think Joe Brady is going to continue to dial up quarterback keepers on the outside when you can just hand it off to your running back and save your quarterback a lot of wear and tear, particularly, Ben, on a short week.
Yeah, absolutely so. It's part of what the joke was for Josh Allen. 4 total scores, 2 through the air, but 2 calling his own name and finding pay dirt on the ground. And people are like, Josh, You can't be taking those hits. Hand it off to James Cook and let him find pay dirt. Maybe a couple of angry fantasy owners as well. Cook, by the way, over his receiving yards prop of 18 and a hook 9 times last year in the regular season. Plenty more on the early line in the daily basis next.